So recently I've been watching these Ash's best team videos, and that got me wondering, what is Ash's best team in competitive Pokemon? I mean, as in competitive Pokemon is how good they would perform in like VGC and Smogon. And we all know how stupid Ash can be in not evolving his Pokemon, but he does have a few strong Pokemon. So today I'm going to be factoring in Ash's best Pokemon I think could be in competitive. So today I'm going to be doing 20 Pokemon that could be in Ash's best competitive team. So in this video, I'm going to be factoring in stats, abilities, and moves in every one of these Pokemon. So today, let's do that. Our first Pokemon of Ash's best competitive team is Pidgeot. Now, a lot of people may be confused why I chose Pidgeot. Well, I think Pidgeot is pretty good on Ash's team. It has some decent stats with high attack, high speed, decent defenses, okay HP. And looking at its moves, it doesn't seem to have the best moveset, with Wing Attack and Quick Attack being its only stab moves. But other than that, I don't think Pidgeot is the best, but I do think it's okay. Next on the list is Primeape. Now, Primeape isn't the best Pokemon competitively, but it does have some decent stats, having good attack, good speed, and mediocre defenses. Its highest weak point is obviously its moves. It doesn't have a stab fighting move, besides Seismic Toss, which does not do actual fighting damage. Overall, Primeape is okay. It wouldn't be able to do very much, but it's okay. Now we have Snorlax. Now, Snorlax isn't the best Pokemon in competitive because it has bad defenses. However, Ash's Snorlax is very special because it has a few really good features. One of them, it has 6 moves. It has Protect, Headbutt, Ice Punch, Hyper Beam, Rest, and Body Slam. Now, Ice Punch is good coverage, Body Slam is a good stab move, Rest and Protect are good setup moves, and the rest are pretty okay. Now, its stats are the real highlight: good HP, good attack, good special defense. Other than that, Snorlax is a really good Pokemon, especially because of those 6 moves, and I think it would find success. The next candidate is Gliscor. Now, Gliscor is a pretty good Pokemon in general, but it's not the best in competitive. However, Ash's Gliscor does seem to be below average because it does not have a stab move, having Fire Fang, Steel Wing, Sand Attack, or Screech. It does not have good special attack, so Screech is kind of pointless on it, but Fire Fang and Steel Wing are good coverage moves. Its stats are pretty good, having good attack, good speed, great defense. Other than that, I don't think it would have very good success, mainly because of the 0 stab moves. Next on the list is Staraptor. Now, Staraptor is a pretty good example of a great first bird. It's probably the best Pokemon to have in Sinnoh. It has some great stats, having great speed, great physical attack, and pretty okay defenses. Its moves are not the best. It has Brave Bird, which is obviously its best move, and Aerial Ace for a second one. Other than that, it's pretty good, and Brave Bird is really carrying it though. Next, we have Ash's Gengar. Now, Ash's Gengar might be one of Ash's most powerful Pokemon of all time because of its great stats and moveset. Its stats are pretty great, having good special attack, good speed, and okay everything else. However, it has some great moves being Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Dazzling Gleam, and Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp is a good setup move, but Gengar is a pretty good Pokemon in conclusion, and I think it might make the team. However, I'm not sure yet. Next up, we have Ash's Hawlucha. Ash's Hawlucha is really good Pokemon. Hawlucha is just a really good Pokemon in general. It has some great stats, having good attack, great speed, and okay defenses. It has some pretty good moves: X Scissor, Karate Chop, Flying Press, and High Jump Kick. High Jump Kick is a good move if it doesn't miss, and Flying Press isn't obvious, but other than that, it's not the best Pokemon. But I do think it's pretty good, having good coverage with X Scissor, but that's pretty much it. Next up is Ash's Lycanroc. Now, Ash's Lycanroc is pretty underrated. It's really powerful. Lycanroc is just really good. It has great speed, great attack, and terrible everything else. However, Ash's Lycanroc has some okay moves, being Excel Rock, Rock Throw, Stone Edge, and Bite. Bite is good coverage. Excel Rock is pretty good. Other than that, it's not the best Pokemon. Good rock type moves, but that's pretty much all it has. Next, we have Ash's Ultra Beast being Naganadel. Now, Naganadel is an extremely powerful Pokemon, being dubbed as an almost legendary Pokemon. It has really good stats, having great speed, insane special attack, and pretty decent everything else. Now, it has some pretty okay moves, being Sludge Bomb, Thunderbolt, X-Scissor, and Fury Attack. It's a special attacker, so Fury Attack is pretty useless. Other than that, it's a really good Pokemon. Next, we have Ash's Noivern. Now, Noivern isn't the most powerful dragon type Ash owns, but it is pretty good, having really good stats, being good HP, great special attack, and a great speed. It has probably the worst moveset out of everyone, having Dragon Claw, Acrobatics, and Boom Burst. Seeing it doesn't have very good attack, it's not the best. Yeah, not the best. Next, we have Ash's true Dragon Kalos Pokemon being Goodra. Goodra is probably one of Ash's best Pokemon, having great stats, having insane special defense, and pretty good everything else. Besides that, it has some pretty good moves, being Dragon Breath, Dragon Pulse, Rain Dance, and Bide. Dragon Pulse is probably the best move it has. However, its other moves are not the best. I don't think it would be very good. Next up, we have Ash's first mythical Pokemon being Melmetal. Now, Melmetal is a pretty powerful Pokemon, having the same stats as a pseudo-legendary, having its HP, attack, and defense being its best, and the rest being okay. Now we have Melmetal's moves. It has some pretty okay moves, its best being Double Iron Bash, and the rest being okay. Overall, I think it's okay, but not the best. Next up, we have Ash's Dracovish. Now, Dracovish is probably one of the best Galar Pokemon Ash could have chosen for his Galar journey, because it has some pretty good stats, its best being its defense, and the rest being pretty good. Now, it has some really good moves, being Dragon Rush, Ice Fang, Water Gun, and Vicious Rend. The only bad one is Water Gun, but other than that, it's a really good Pokemon. Now we have Ash's Incineroar. Now we haven't seen much of Ash's Incineroar, however we do know its stats, and its stats are pretty good, having all good around the board except for its speed. Now, if you look at its moves, it's pretty good. Revenge is some good coverage. Now, Incineroar is one of the best competitive Pokemon, however, his Incineroar has Blaze instead of Intimidate, so... Next up, we have Ash's true dragon powerhouse being Dragonite. Now, Dragonite is probably one of the best Pokemon of Ash's. It has some really good stats, insane attack, and really good everything else. It has some really good moves being Dragon Claw, Hurricane, Dragon Dance, and Draco Meteor. Dragon Dance being a really good setup move. Overall, I think Dragonite is a pretty good Pokemon of Ash's. Next up, we have Ash's Lucario being the only one of Ash's Pokemon to ever Mega Evolve, which is why it's on the list. Now, it has some really good stats, being even better when it Mega Evolves, just making it a powerhouse. Its worst part is obviously its moves, only having 3, but those 3 moves are really good, especially Aura Sphere. Now, is it the best Pokemon ever? No, but I do think it's a really good Pokemon. Next up, we have Ash's Crocodile. Now, Crocodile is probably my favorite Pokemon to use just in general because of its Moxie ability, but overall it has some really good stats, having great attack and speed, and pretty good everything else. Now, its good moves are Dig, Dragon Claw, Aerial Ace, and Stone Edge. It doesn't have a Dark, which is really bad. However, I do think it's a really decent Pokemon in general. Next up, we have Ash's Infernape. Now, Ash's Infernape is probably Ash's best Pokemon in general, and that's mainly because of its moves and stats. Now, its stats are really good. It has really well balanced across the board, having good attack, special attack, and speed, and its moves are pretty good too, having Flare Blitz, Dig, Mach Punch, and Flamethrower with good coverage. And overall, I think it's probably the best candidate as a fire type, but we'll get into another one later. Speaking of another fire type, I think Charizard is the next candidate. Now, Charizard is a pretty good Pokemon in general, having good special attack and speed, and pretty balanced across the rest. Now, it has some pretty decent, okay moves, being Dragon Tail, Slash, Wing Attack, and Flamethrower, but other than that, I do think Charizard is a pretty decent Pokemon, but it's okay, not better than Infernape. Finally, the 20th spot goes to Ash's Greninja. Now, Ash's Greninja is pretty okay. It has the ability Battle Bond, which is obviously worse than Protean. But for now, we have some pretty good stats to work with, and then they just get way better when they turn into Ash Greninja, having really good attacks and speed. Other than that, it has some pretty awful moves, its only stab move being Water Shuriken. Other than that, I don't think it's the best candidate because of its two flaws, being its ability and its moveset. Now that we factor in all 20 Pokemon, we will be taking 6 of the best and putting them on a team. So, the first candidate on Ash's Pokemon team, I think, is Gengar. Now, Gengar is probably the best Pokemon as a candidate for Ash's team because of its insanely good moveset. It has good movesets across the board and Will-O-Wisps just for the fun of it. So I think the first Pokemon is Gengar. Next up, we have Ash's Dracovish. Now, Dracovish is probably Ash's strongest water type he's ever had on his team because of its very balanced stats and its really good moveset, having Vicious Rend, Ice Fang, Water Gun, and Dragon Rush. So I think it deserves to be on number 2. Next up, we have Ash's Dragonite. Now, Dragonite is by far Ash's strongest pseudo-legendary Pokemon. Sorry, Goodra. Because of its insane moveset. It has Dragon Dance, which is already broken, Draco Meteor, Hurricane, and Dragon Claw, so that's why I think it belongs on number 3. Next up, we have Ash's Infernape. Now, Ash's Infernape is probably the best fire type he's ever had, because Charizard just has a worse moveset in general. Speaking of moveset, it has probably one of the best movesets out of any of Ash's Pokemon, so yeah, it definitely belongs on number 4. Next, we have Ash's powerhouse of a ground type being Krookodile. Now, Krookodile is probably Ash's strongest ground type he's ever had, having an insane moveset of Dig, Dragon Claw, Aerial Ace, and Stone Edge. The only critique I have is it doesn't have a dark move, but other than that, it definitely belongs on number 5. Before I unravel the final Pokemon on this list, I just want you to look back on the video and think, what could it possibly be? And the final Pokemon is Snorlax! Now, some of you may be giving me some weird looks, but first of all, Snorlax has some really good stats, especially its HP and special defense. Now, its true highlight is its moves. It has some pretty insane moves. I mean, Hyper Beam is kind of useless on it, but before Gen 4 it was really useful. And plus, Snorlax is basically the Pokemon god. Like, let's be honest, Snorlax has 6 moves. It's pretty good. And Snorlax, boom! Snorlax definitely belongs on the... Please do not take this video so seriously. I just wanted to have fun with this video, and it was really fun to make. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. Start of the channel has been pretty cool so far. And see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.